and welcome everyone. So today I am going to provide an overview of the Audit Bureau, talk a little bit about our audit process, as well as describe some of your rights during and after an audit, as well as cover some of the self-service tools and enhancements that we've made here for taxpayers, trying to make our processes more effective and efficient. All right, so the mission of the Illinois Department of Revenue's Audit Bureau is to provide fair, accurate, efficient, and equitable enforcement of tax laws throughout the audit process and improve voluntary compliance for future reporting. We strive to do this while continuing to improve voluntary compliance for all through education and communication with taxpayers, industry leaders, and professional organizations. The Audit Bureau is currently staffed with over 400 people and is comprised of 3 divisions, including the Audit Discovery and Recovery Division and our 2 field compliance divisions, one for sales and miscellaneous taxes and the other for income tax. The Sales and Miscellaneous Tax Field Compliance Division is responsible for conducting a variety of audits, including those for retailers' occupation tax and use tax, as well as service occupation and service use tax, cannabis taxes, hotel operators' occupation tax, telecommunications excise tax, tobacco products, and other miscellaneous tax types. The Income Tax Field Compliance Division focuses on audits related to business income tax, individual income tax, and withholding. And lastly, our in-house operation, the Audit Discovery and Recovery Division, is responsible for providing a variety of support services for the Audit Bureau, including identifying potential audits and establishing audit assignments for our in-house and field personnel. They provide technical support for audit staff, review legislation, and coordinate with our legal division to resolve questions. They perform a variety of desk audits of identified leads on the income tax side that may include non-filers or focuses on personal services income, reasonable compensation, those types of issues. And on the sales tax side, they're going to conduct audits on transactions such as aircraft and watercraft purchases. They're going to look at referrals from other states and then other select areas of focus. AD&R is also responsible for reviewing and processing completed audits submitted by both in-house and field staff. They provide laptop and remote access support for our staff and test our integrated tax system, any updates or changes to that. They process responses and payments, and also have a Fed state exchange unit, which is responsible for performing examinations based on the information that we receive from the Internal Revenue Service. That typically includes non-filers as well as taxpayers who may have underreported their income to the state of Illinois. Next slide. All right, so some quick staffing updates for the Audit Bureau. Over this past year, we've added a number of additional staff, including Charles Schoen as the Sales Tax Field Compliance Assistant Division Manager, Jennifer Kowalski as the Audit Discovery and Recovery Division Assistant Division Manager, and Yvette Gu most recently was added as our Income Tax Field Compliance Assistant Division Manager. We've also undergone a lot of recent hiring for other staff, including a large group of revenue auditor trainees. We had a recent hire that included 48 revenue audit trainees, and it was largely filled by staff from in-house at the Department of Revenue. Historically, we've had a struggle, to be honest, with filling those positions because we're in direct competition with probably a lot of you, as well, those in the private industry that potentially have higher salaries, as an example, compared to state. So we've taken on a really solid effort here at the department to enhance our continuing education for existing staff. And so through those efforts, we've been able to supplement the education of our existing staff here at the department, get them the necessary accounting experience that allows them to then qualify and meet the qualifications for these revenue auditor trainee positions. And thus far, it's been really successful. We've been able to partner with a local community college to help with that effort. And it made this last hire super successful, and we were able to hire 48 trainees. We also have recently brought on additional supervisors and are continuing to hire additional audit supervisors. Those staff are responsible for helping to review audits and provide support for our auditors. And so the more of those supervisor positions that we fill, the faster we can get those audits turned over and reviewed and ensure the quality of the work that we're performing. Next slide. All right, so now that I've given you some background on how the Audit Bureau is set up, I'm going to go ahead and provide you with some additional details on the audit process itself. Our audit program serves multiple purposes: ensuring compliance, educating taxpayers, identifying underpayments and overpayments, and ultimately protecting state revenues. The audits that we perform are intended to ensure a fair and efficient system of tax administration. They're not punitive by default. They're intended to promote fairness across the taxpayer base. And our audit process can then ultimately lead to liabilities or refunds. It just depends on the findings throughout our review. Next slide. Taxpayers are entitled to fair, respectful, and professional treatment during the audit. They have the right to an accurate determination of tax liabilities. Communications are, it's necessary that communications are clear. Auditors must explain what they're asking for and why. And likewise, when we're working with taxpayers or their representatives, we're expecting clear communications back with us, as well as clear documentation to support the existing filings or records that we're reviewing. These rights are grounded in the Taxpayer Bill of Rights that are highlighted in our PIO 60, which is available on our website at tax.illinois.gov. I encourage anybody participating in the webinar today to review that document on our website. It is very, very helpful if you're going through an audit or just getting started on an audit. That PIO 60 is going to walk through everything related to our audit process and should provide you with a great amount of information. Transparency and respect are cornerstones to the audit process, and we do our best to provide that throughout every piece of work that we conduct. Next slide. So our audits are established from various sources, and the selection qualifications isn't always about suspicion of wrongdoing. Some of the common triggers that can result in an audit, one of the primary ones is random selection. We do statistical sampling models as an example. We have nature of business audits that we conduct. So certain industries such as cash businesses, maybe bars, restaurants, those types of businesses, they have higher audit risk. So that may lead to selection. Audit history is absolutely considered. So prior issues identified in an audit may lead to reexamination. And then audit referrals that we receive internally, as well as from other agencies within the state of Illinois, local governments, or even taxpayers. Those can all result in audit selection. Next slide. All right, so we have different approaches for the audits that we perform, and those are really tailored to the type of tax and the business that we're auditing. Some of the methods that we utilize include verification of reported tax bases, document reviews, including reviews of receipts, invoices, and ledgers, POS system reports, those types of things. And we do comparison analysis with federal returns and industry averages. For a retailer, our audit will serve to verify that the proper amount of tax is collected and remitted on taxable retail transactions, and that the taxpayer has proper documentation to support any non-taxable retail transactions they've reported. On the income tax side, this is also going to include verifying that addition and subtraction modifications, as well as credits claimed, are properly reported and supported, and that receipts are properly apportioned or allocated, and income is properly reported by pass-through entities. Regardless of the methods used during the course of our audit, the goal is always to determine an accurate tax liability. So the foundation of any successful audit is solid documentation. Taxpayers are required to maintain and produce source documents, including receipts, invoices, and transaction records. General ledgers, detailed accounting data that supports their tax filings, and file tax returns, along with any supporting schedules and documentation related to those returns. Organized and accessible records not only facilitate a smoother audit process, but they also reduce the risk of penalties. So how does this actually work? Well, once an audit is assigned to an auditor, an initiation letter is sent to the taxpayer. This letter outlines the period of the audit and directs the taxpayer to contact the auditor. If the taxpayer doesn't contact the auditor in the next couple weeks, the auditor is going to reach out to the taxpayer and set up an opening conference. At that opening conference, the auditor will describe the audit process. They're going to go through questions specific to the audit and determine how the audit will be conducted, whether that's in person or virtually. The auditor will then follow up with an information document request, or EDA 70, seeking books and records necessary to conduct the audit. Additional actions can be taken if the taxpayer does not provide the requested information, or if additional information is needed during the course of the audit. That can include additional document requests or even a formal demand for books and records if that's necessary. As a general reminder, failure to produce records can result in penalties up to $3,000 per filing period. Next slide. Our audits can be conducted in a variety of settings to accommodate both the taxpayer and the Department of Revenue. We can conduct audits on-site at the taxpayer's business. We can conduct them at the office of the taxpayer's authorized representative, or even remotely through virtual tools, including our virtual audit room in MyTax Illinois. Recent industry research and taxpayer service studies continue to show that there is a strong taxpayer preference for digital communication and self-service options. And as a result, the Audit Bureau has continued expanding the electronic tools and virtual audit capabilities that we provide. I'll go into some more detail on functionality and benefits of both the virtual audit room and MyTax Illinois later in this presentation. In terms of audit duration, the length of an audit can vary greatly based on the business size and the type of business that's being audited, readiness of the records for that business, and then responsiveness of the taxpayer or their representative. A one-day review can become a months-long audit if data is not provided promptly. Efficient record gathering and communication can significantly shorten the process and reduce disruptions for your business. Taxpayers do have the right to representation during audits. Authorized individuals must submit Form IL-28 2848, our power of attorney form. The form needs to be sent to both our audit team and the Department of Revenue, either by upload through MyTax Illinois, which is our preferred method, or via email, fax, or mail. Additional details on submission methods can be found on our website at tax.illinois.gov. One item of note there you'll see in the footnote is that only owners, officers, members, or partners may legally appoint a representative. If the person submitting the IL-2848 is not one of those people, their registration records must be updated for that business prior to them submitting. Next slide. So there are penalties that can be established under audit. The two primary penalties that may apply is a 15% penalty when liability is assessed, and that increases to a 20% penalty if that liability remains unpaid 30 days after our notice of audit results is issued. Taxpayers can request a waiver of penalties if they show reasonable cause. Reasonable cause does require a written explanation of the reason for why there was the issue that was uncovered in the audit, as well as supporting documentation to justify that request. Penalty relief may be granted for circumstances like natural disasters, death or serious illness, or reliance on professional advice that was improper. Our auditors will guide taxpayers through this request process during the audit. Next slide. Once initial audit work is completed, the taxpayer will be provided with the preliminary audit results and be given an opportunity to provide documentation to resolve any exceptions. Additional documentation will be reviewed and the final audit working papers will be provided to the taxpayer. Taxpayers do have several options to challenge or mediate audit findings. Those include fast-track resolution, as well as informal conference board, formal protests, or even court appeals. For fast-track resolution, certain taxpayers do have the option to go to FTR, and that option allows them to resolve disputes before the audit is finalized through the fast-track resolution process. Some examples of the issues that go to FTR include 1099-K audits, certain cash businesses, and select income tax audits. Eligible taxpayers will be provided information about the program and then have 20 days to request an FTR conference. The Fast Track Resolution Program provides a forum for prompt resolution of disputed audit issues while the case is still under the authority of the Audit Bureau. The program consists of a one-day conference between the taxpayer or designee, an FTR facilitator, and members of the Audit Bureau who are independent of the unresolved audit. Our target during the FTR process is to resolve an issue within 60 days from the time an FTR application is filed. So that really is indicative of the intent of the program, which is that it's a fast resolution. For the informal conference board, all taxpayers are provided an opportunity to petition the ICB for administrative review following the issuance of a proposed notice of tax liability or a proposed claim denial. The taxpayer then has 60 days to petition the ICB. Our auditors will explain this process. Taxpayers can waive their fast track resolution and informal conference board rights and disagree with the final audit results and still retain formal protest rights. If that happens, once the audit's processed, the taxpayer will receive a notice of tax liability or a notice of deficiency, depending on the tax type being audited. The taxpayer will then have 60 days from the date of the notice of tax liability or notice of deficiency to request an administrative hearing, or they can petition the Illinois Independent Tax Tribunal if eligible. Taxpayers also have the ability to bypass the administrative hearing or tax tribunal and go straight to circuit court. Of course, taxpayers can waive going to FTR or ICB and just agree to the audit liabilities. In my opinion, that's the best case. In this case, a final audit report will be issued, after which the taxpayer has 30 days to agree and pay the liability, after which that additional 5% penalty applies to any unpaid amounts, and then obviously interest is going to continue to accrue. Taxpayers who are unable to pay the entire tax liability can pursue a payment agreement with the Department of Revenue once collection activity begins. All right, as I previously noted, taxpayer expectations do continue to evolve toward digital communication and self-service options. Our Audit Bureau is advancing a broad modernization agenda, expanding digital communication options, enabling secure electronic document submission, and delivering virtual audit capabilities that reduce barriers for taxpayers across the state. These tools improve convenience, security, response times, and overall audit efficiency. So let's take a look at what those are. So MyTax Illinois remains the department's primary self-service platform for electronic audit interactions. Through MyTax Illinois, taxpayers and their representatives can manage the full life cycle of an audit or examination, from the point where they receive a notice to final resolution without ever having to mail a document to the department or visit an office. Some of the options that we allow for in MyTax Illinois include responding to notices, uploading documentation, signing waivers for the statute of limitations. You can submit payments or request payment plans. You can request an expedited resolution through Fast Track Resolution Program. And you can also seek reasonable cause requests and penalty abatements through MyTax Illinois. These electronic response options reduce mail handling, eliminate delays from lost documents, and give taxpayers a clear record of every submission to the department, which improves efficiency for both the taxpayer and the Department of Revenue. Next slide. So one of the things that I'm awfully proud of is that we've recently implemented a new simplified response for submitting responses to the Federal State Exchange Unit here at the Department of Revenue. Our Federal State Exchange Unit is responsible for sending out a large volume of notices to taxpayers who have information reported to us that's different than what's been reported to the Internal Revenue Service. That includes non-filers as well as underreporters. So with this new process, we've created an electronic response option, making it easier than ever for taxpayers to reply to those FSCU notices. No MyTax Illinois account is required, and we've reduced the reliance on emails for submitting these electronically. To accomplish this, we've added QR codes to various letters, and taxpayers can simply scan the QR code on their notice, then submit their response and supporting documentation online. Responses are then routed securely through department systems, which significantly reduces reliance on email-based submissions while expediting our process. This new option expands access for taxpayers who don't have or prefer not to create a MyTax Illinois account while maintaining the same secure routing through our departmental systems. Next slide. Through this new process, taxpayers can submit documentation through direct uploads, reducing delays and ensuring that we receive clear, complete files in an expedited manner. Next, they can formally agree with our proposed adjustments or dispute them, creating an official record of their response while the case moves forward. Taxpayers can request modifications to the adjustments that we've performed and provide additional information or an explanation if they believe our findings need to be updated. And for cases that result in a balance, taxpayers can make payments or request a payment plan in the portal. This makes the resolution process smoother and keeps everything in one place. Finally, for those cases involving residency issues, they can also submit resident information directly through the portal, helping ensure that my team has what they need to ensure proper tax treatment is applied. Next slide. You can go ahead and play that, Aaron.
Correspondence for our federal state exchange unit has been updated to include scannable QR codes. Scanning the QR code or following the URL provided on the notice will take you to the MyTax Illinois site, where you can click the Respond to an Examination option. After selecting Respond to Examination, you will be prompted to enter the letter ID from your notice. After entering the letter ID, you will be prompted to choose a response option, dependent on the type of notice to which you were responding. In this case, I chose to agree with the examiner's report. This leads to a waiver statement with information on taxpayer rights after agreement. Next, you will be presented with options to submit a payment or to request a payment plan. Making a payment is simple. You simply add your bank details and payment information, then submit your request. Once you have submitted your response, you are provided with a confirmation record, which can be saved or printed.
Okay, so that's a basic example, but highlights. Oh, sorry. So that's just a basic example. It highlights how simple it can be to respond to one of our FSCU notices. For any of those responses, once they're submitted, they're processed into our integrated tax system and are available immediately for review by our staff. That's going to help eliminate bottlenecks in the processing and speed up getting the tax records correct for both the taxpayer and the department. So as I noted previously, MyTax Illinois continues to serve as one of the department's primary self-service platforms for both taxpayers and their representatives during the audit process, and it can be used to perform a variety of functions during an audit. Some of those include responding to audit inquiries and examinations, uploading supporting documentation, electronically signing waivers, submitting payments or requesting payment plans, applying for FTR, and requesting reasonable cause. For our traditional audits, there are also options to respond electronically through MyTax Illinois. From within your MyTax Illinois account, you simply select more account options, and then under the account options panel, as you can see on the bottom left there, you select respond to an audit. This brings up letters which are available for you to respond to. You can click on the hyperlink there in blue. If you want to review the letter, it'll actually bring up a letter for you to look at. And then once you've determined the appropriate letter to which you're responding, you select the letter to respond to and then click here to respond to advance into the web request. From this screen, the taxpayer can provide both a written response and attach documents. They can also indicate whether a document is unavailable. Our audit letter response work items are then created internally upon submission of an information document request. One item of note, the maximum file size is 50 megabytes through MyTax Illinois, so any files larger than that will need to be submitted in another format, including through our virtual audit room, which I'll talk about here shortly. Taxpayers can electronically sign statute of limitation waivers through MyTax Illinois. They can respond to an audit and then select the option to submit a response to our statute of limitations waiver letter. They'll have to agree to the statute waiver language, which is shown there on the screen, and then provide details on who is preparing the response. Once the response is submitting, a signature response is going to be processed into Gentax, our integrated tax system, and then that signed waiver creates a work item in our system for the supervisor to review. So we get those immediately. It allows us to, again, keep these moving quickly. There are a number of additional audit-related functions available through MyTax Illinois. I already have kind of run through those, so I don't need to repeat them to you. They're shown on the screen there. I can say that, though, using MyTax Illinois to submit your secure paperless audit responses does help to reduce that mail handling time. It's going to eliminate delays, reduce the risk of any lost documents, and then give taxpayers a clear, time-stamped record of every submission to the Department of Revenue, making the whole process more clear and efficient for both the taxpayer and the department. Next slide. So moving on, our virtual audit room. So we have a SharePoint virtual audit room, which is our secure, confidential, web-based document management system used by the Audit Bureau to also share documents with taxpayers during the course of an audit. It's just another tool that's available in addition to MyTax Illinois. Each auditor has their own SharePoint site, and each audit is set up by the auditor with unique permissions for their taxpayers and their representatives. Next slide. So the VAR is intended to be a very simple process. When an audit is assigned, the taxpayer is sent a document with the audit initiation letter and is directed to our website for information on the virtual audit room. The auditor will then discuss the benefits of the VAR with the taxpayer to determine if they're willing to use the tool. If they're interested in using the VAR, then the auditor obtains information that's necessary to establish a virtual audit room specific to the audit that's being performed. The auditor will then upload the document requests and other correspondence to the VAR, and the taxpayer can then pull those down and respond by uploading their own documentation. Once the audit's complete, our auditor is going to go in and download all of the information that was all the contents from the VAR, and then that room is actually going to be removed from the SharePoint site. Next slide. So in February of 2026, we did take on an effort to update our virtual audit room experience, and we were successful in implementing that. While the core concepts remain the same, this upgrade uses the latest SharePoint platform and brings meaningful usability to the virtual audit room. Taxpayers and their representatives will notice that it's a cleaner interface, there's better document organization, and there's improved compatibility across browsers and devices, which is going to help make that audit experience even more intuitive from start to finish. Similar to MyTax Illinois, using the virtual audit room during an audit results in significant time savings. There's no need to wait for in-person meetings or put documents in the mail to send them back and forth to the department. Those documents can then be exchanged electronically and accessed by other parties in real time, which has enhanced the efficiency of our audits. They've also reduced in significant travel savings to the Department of Revenue and to the taxpayers of the state of Illinois. In fiscal year 18, prior to when the virtual audit room was first implemented, the Department of Revenue was spending on average of $150,000 per month on travel specific to the Audit Bureau. In that first fiscal year after implementing the virtual audit room, those expenses were cut by 43% and have since declined to the point where we're at now, where we're only spending maybe $1,000 or $2,000 a month on auditor travel. It has been extremely efficient, and I think even further highlights the desire of taxpayers to work with us in electronic means, keeping us out of their offices and helping move the audits on as fast as they can. Next slide. Okay, you're there. One other modernization effort I'm excited about is our new IFTA records review program. For those of you who are not familiar with IFTA, the IFTA stands for the International Fuel Tax Agreement, which is a cooperative agreement amongst the lower 48 states and Canadian provinces. It simplifies how motor carriers report and pay fuel taxes when they operate in multiple jurisdictions. So instead of filing separate fuel returns in every state they travel through, those carriers file one quarterly return with their base jurisdiction. That base jurisdiction, such as Illinois, then processes that return and handles the distribution of taxes owed or refunds due across all the member jurisdictions. As part of the IFTA agreement, each jurisdiction is required to audit a set percentage of licensed carriers every single year. This ensures consistent compliance, accurate reporting, and fairness across all IFTA member states. To meet this requirement, IDOR conducts a combination of traditional audits and now, as shown on the slide, early stage records reviews. These record reviews are a more targeted early stage compliance tool, which is intended to reinforce proper record keeping processes while those processes are still being established, which should lead to stronger compliance behavior going forward. Based on our early internal experience, traditional IFTA audits typically require about 96 hours to complete, while these records reviews are expected to take anywhere from 10 to 15 hours in the early stages of implementation, and we expect that through efficiencies and consistency that number is going to get even lower. We're looking forward to seeing how this program evolves as a means to not only improve taxpayer education and record keeping, but also to improve the efficiency of the necessary work that the department performs. And the last thing that I was going to cover today is our upcoming remote retailer amnesty program for remote retailers that owe state or local retailers occupation tax. At a high level, this is a new tax amnesty program for remote retailers that's going to occur from August 1st through October 31st of 2026. It applies to transactions that occurred from January 1st of 2021 through June 30, 2026. To be eligible for this amnesty program, retailers must have had economic nexus with Illinois during the eligibility period and must be registered with the Illinois Department of Revenue. Some of the benefits of participating in the program: there's a waiver of interest and penalties on eligible transactions, and unique to this amnesty program, if the taxpayer is unable to pay at the time in which they are filing their remote retailer amnesty return, they can actually enter into a payment plan. An amnesty will be granted upon successful completion of the plan. Those plans cannot exceed 24 months, and the entire eligible liability must be paid during the payment plan period to qualify for amnesty relief. For our traditional amnesty programs that the department holds, payment plans don't exist. So this is incredibly new for this, and we're excited about providing that opportunity. Some of the details for the tax rate. So participants in this program are going to use a simplified tax rate. For goods that are normally taxed at the 6 1/4 state rate, that simplified rate is 9%, and that's going to encompass those local taxes as well. For qualified food and other items that are typically taxed at 1%, as well as the local, that's going to be a simplified rate of 1.75%. Retailers aren't going to pay more than those rates unless they collected and failed to remit higher taxes during the period. And the takeaway, I think, for this program is it offers a limited time opportunity for remote sellers to become compliant with reduced complexity and financial burden. I encourage you all to look to our website for additional details, including additional information on Informational Bulletin Fiscal Year 2026-28, as well as other updates related to the spring legislative session.